Good morning, this is Brad.
Yes.
Good morning, Brad. We can hear you good, though. I thought that might be you there.
She 17 years over in billions.
Great committee person.
So,
What?
How was she?
Oh, great. Great. Stitches came out yesterday.
Oh, good.
Wally, we are ready for you to take it away whenever you're ready.
Return to what would be the best wordage on this? Return to the budget hearing. that
You can
was
still
continued-
call this to order as a continued.
Continued from our first session. And according to the materials provided to me, I would also, before we get into this, I'll make a real quick statement. I want to thank, I had a question for Ethan. And he provided me a ballpark answer, which was what I asked for. Just bringing everybody up to the emails that I sent out over the last 3 or 4 days. The first question was, at the beginning of the new fiscal year, ballpark, how much money do we have in all of our accounts? Instead of doing it at the end of the year, my recommendation to our county commission moving forward, the first thing we discuss as budget committee is, where is our money? I've never started a budget for any business I've had that I haven't looked at revenues before I looked at expenses. I would also further say that I had a conversation with Kelly back and forth, emails, related to reserves. I'll be passing forward my views on that to the county commission as well. We've got reserves all over 56 or 58 pages scattered. How can a budget committee work if you have to go through 58 pages to figure out where the reserves are, and within how we address reserves, nothing is specified as to what the reserve is there for. How long has the reserve been there? Is it going to be spent in 5 years, in 2 years, in 1 year? And I'll be asking the county commission, with the approval of everybody, that we have a single sheet when we start next year that says, I'm not saying we don't have the reserves still where they are. What I'm saying is that we have one sheet where all the reserves are laid out.
Mhm.
With a background on each one of them. I think we're going to find some of these reserves perhaps should be shifted someplace else. In other words, if they've been there for 5 years and the new county court has moved into a different direction, and we still show them as a reserve, why are we showing them as a reserve? Figure out a way to move them back to
Non-appropriated?
non-allocated, or, further to that, Kelly and I have had this conversation at the last meeting and this meeting. Some of these special funds, what's the wording I'm looking for on that, with reserves and special payments?
The special payments. Mhm.
Some of these payments started out as special payments, we've never moved them out, and we're still paying. That's no longer a special payment. That should be in a materials budget or some other.
Depends on what the origin of the payment is.
Yes.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
and I'm going to ask the county court look into that,
Yes.
and if there are some that should be shifted out. What I'm trying to do is clean up the budget process, so when we do this, we're more efficient.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to make any waves in particular with anyone. We should, so with that, I'd ask for, well, everybody knows everybody here, I think, but Gary from Sheriff is here. And Josie? Joe, yeah, Jolie is here. And our new county judge, at least as of January, and perhaps even sooner, is here. Nothing has been confirmed yet. And then, of course, Nathan, thank Nathan. And with that, let's move into a general budget discussion.
Okay.
And we look to Kelly.
So to start our recap, I don't have it up on the board today because Zoom needs updated and it's apparently going to take its time with that. So we're all on paper this morning and,
Just a,
I will share it for those on the Zoom so that they can, see where we're at and what we're
take us
looking
through the
at.
changes of my page, don't you?
Yes, yep. So the first change is going to be on page 15.
Don't you highlight?
I did. I highlighted the changes for you.
Okay.
Just trying to get caught up on the screen. So we are on 101, 103, County Court. Okay, so the first change that was made was to change the county administrator back to an executive assistant to the judge. And we lowered that from 140,000 to 79,470, which also then adjusted the payroll taxes, FICA, workers' comp, unemployment, and retirement. So those were all lowered down.
Which again is
there.
at the top of the salaries.
At the top of the pay scale, yes, yep. Next change was legal consultant. We increased that to 60,000, as it was last year. Just because there may be a little more consulting in the upcoming year with the changes in the court. And then again, we increased the human resources consulting, to 10,000. It had been lowered, I believe, to 5,000. So we increased that back up to 10,000, in the event that, again, with a new court and new staff, we may have some more consulting to do. So that explains those changes. Next up is going to be on page 19. And that is 101, 106, Health Department. And we increased the deflection program to $150,000 because we will have 75,000 coming in this year that will be carried over and expended in the coming fiscal year. So we did not increase any revenues to match that because it's coming in this fiscal year. And then the last change is going to be on page 30. And that is adjusting the unappropriated ending fund balance for the general fund, to balance out the general fund, reflecting the changes made. Is there any further discussion on any of that?
Hearing my notes, what the changes were, and it looks like those were all the things
Right.
we asked for.
Okay.
Okay, those were the changes we made. I'm gonna, ask that, okay. It's good that item number 3 is on here because, I wanted to, this is also part of my letter I'll be sending to the county commission, and that is that, if we turn to the homestead rebate page is what?
Oh, It gets paid out of the Economic Enhancement Fund, 232, so that's page number
Now,
51.
Let's look at the
The endowment,
okay.
that should be 327.
And I have a follow-up question to that. How much each year? I think this last year we expended $500,000 on the rebate. Is that correct?
Yeah, the rebate last year was going to be about, I think, 280 something. Let's double check here. Yeah, right around 280 tends to be kind of a good
Okay,
number out
we
there.
are spending, and it's good that you're here. We are spending $280,000, give or take, on our property tax rebate. We are projecting at the end of this fiscal year, the upcoming fiscal year, there is going to be 9.3 million in the endowment. Every year we keep setting aside economic enhancement funds, shove them into the endowment. Now, I have nothing against this. I'm just one vote. How many years do we have to carry in the endowment to make everybody comfortable? If you divide $300,000 into $9 million, we now have enough within the endowment at the present rate of expenditure of 30 years. Is that enough? I'm asking, I don't have answers to any of my questions. That's the reason I ask questions. But is that the proper place to store further funds? I guess is the question I have for the new court. Okay.
So my question be with what does that ordinance actually say about it?
Absolutely. What does it say about it? But further to that, are there any outs on the ordinance, or should the county court be looking at the ordinance?
Yeah.
If there's no way out, then in the past, we've written a really poor ordinance.
Yeah, the ordinance can be reviewed and changes can be made.
Okay.
And I'm not saying anything take place.
In the rebate part itself?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's bad that we have $9 million in unallocated. Is that about right, Nathan?
All right.
I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm just saying that, my God, 30 years. Okay, let's move into the homestead rebate percentage and maximum amount for 2024-25 fiscal year. What was this last year's 500?
590. It was 100% of your property tax bill up to a maximum of $590.
Okay. And what is the state? That was the cap. That was as high as we could go.
It was only a cap because if you go over that, then we have to send out 1099.
If you go over $600, then we
that's
have to keep people's social security numbers on file
Okay.
and send out 1099s, which
That was the two.
opens up a whole nother can of worms.
Yes, okay. My thinking on this then is that we stay at 590. But we also task the county commission or whoever does this kind of thing to look at this and knowing what we have in our endowment. Is it appropriate time for county government to come back to the budget committee and the people and say, look, here's the reason we haven't gone above this. Should we go above this? It's going to be more complicated for the county. It's going to cost more money. I don't have.
So the discussion the assessor and I had to this effect is that if you adjust it for inflation, I mean, it's not very much money.
No.
It'd be like giving you $150 30 years ago.
Right.
Right.
So
I think the county court should take a look at this and decide what you want to do. What's best? Everybody.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay, could I have a motion from the floor to approve the 2024-25 budget in the amount of $590 and to certify the total ad valorem property tax in the amount of $3.845 per $1,000 of the assessed value? I would like a motion to approve.
Those are two separate things though.
Yeah, one of these is for the rebate and one is for approving the
Okay,
budget.
so we should have two
But we
motions.
need to put the amount in there for that.
Okay, let's start with the sample motion. I move,
I
Jerry,
move to set the homestead rebate for fiscal year 2024-2025 at 100% of the property tax bill, not to exceed a maximum of $590 per qualifying homestead.
well done.
Thank you, I can read.
Do I have a second?
I'll
I
second.
second.
Oh, let
Yeah, we'll
Brad,
let Brad.
Let Brad do it.
Hi,
Okay.
Brad.
Hi, Brad. Okay, any further discussion? Any, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Does anybody have any objection to my sending to the county court what I suggested that they,
Oh, I think anybody could send any type of suggestion like that to the county court at any time.
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
No.
okay,
So I think coming
Now-
from the budget committee as a group is also a good,
okay.
mhm.
And I would, now, do we have to,
we have to put an amount in. Don't we?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
would
but the
need
bottom
to
line,
fill
Go
in
ahead.
the
you have another motion?
total.
we need to make sure I have the right amount.
Is it the 94?
And I got my pages all,
602?
that sounds right. I got my pages all out of order.
That's what.
Oh, yep, there it is, 94.
94,120,602.
Here, right.
Yep.
Got it, thank you.
That.
Are you looking for
Right.
it?
I'm just making sure that's right.
It is, yes.
Thousand.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep, that is
I
the
move to
number.
approve the 2024-2025 budget in the amount of 94,120,602 and to certify the total ad valorem property tax in the amount of 3.845 per $1,000 of the assessed value.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We now move on to, a real sticky wicket. Now, are we going to be doing anything other grant applications?
We are not at this time.
Okay.
Okay, so
We do not
we
have
can,
an actual grant committee that needs to be
Right.
put
Okay.
together so that we can actually sit down and dive into these.
what I'm thinking here is that,
So did we only end up with 3 then
I believe so.
of the operational?
Yeah.
so, I want to make
Cause
two
I pulled
comments.
one of them.
Before we close the hearing, I want to make two further comments on allocations. One of them happens to be grants. There's a $6 million reserve in place in the budget for grants. There was a $6 million allocation last year for grants. How much of that 6 million did we spend?
I
We
will look
didn't
that up.
spend 6 million.
I do not believe so.
But again, some of those pledged dollars haven't come out of the budget because those are.
Yes, yeah, 800,000 of it has been carried forward.
So we've already spent 5.2 million.
Let me get a
That was
number, not
from the year
necessarily.
What's,
That was carried over from the year before, right?
yes, the 800 and some was.
See. Let's
This
see
is the
what we
challenge within the
expended.
budget.
So I think the operational ones right now said that they were close to 1 million, but we pulled one of them. So I think it's closer to 800,000.
Yeah, we were right at 1,030,000.
And we pulled
and-
that 100 and.
One that we pulled, no, what being requested,
Oh, for this year,
Yeah,
for 24-25.
Okay.
yeah.
So,
270 of that was pulled.
Okay, before we close the hearing, I think we have now gone through over the last 18 years, go prior to that, 2 years, of course, use the words there, 4 county judges. And, these programs have undergone tremendous change through that time, as some people, as people bring their agendas. It is, our challenge now, though, is that Sherry's been left without the budget committee is left in a tough position here when it gets to grants, because we don't have a grants. And we're allocating $6 million where we know nothing about. That is not the way I would like to run budget. But unfortunately, we're in a jam here. And so my suggestion is, since the county court ends up with this in the end anyway, correct?
Yes.
That we asterisk the $6 million and reference back to the county court. We will try to put in place a grants committee as quick as we can. And in the end, we can't make a decision because we don't know.
Yes.
Well, and it isn't so much a decision from the budget committee on the grants themselves, but what goes into the account.
Yes.
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 And to answer your question about the current year's spending out of that $6 million that was budgeted, we have spent about 1.3 million and carried over the 800,000.
See, I think
So that's awarded grants.
He said, this might be what's happening on this, is that we make projections into the future, and then we think we have to, which is correct. I've done a lot of grant work. And some scientists will come to us and ask us for $100,000 this year to do a project that you know is going to be a 5-year research project. The state only allows us to book $100,000 because we can only award on a yearly basis. So we have to tuck in the back of our minds that actually this is going to cost us $500,000. And so with that in mind, so people, and once again, getting back to the homestead fund, the endowment, the money coming out of the endowment, economic endowment. This is a similar thing, and one of the reasons I want reserves pulled out on the one page for us to look at them and then recommend to the county court is that when you make a grant award, do you tuck, and it's a multi-year grant award, do you immediately reserve it, identify it specifically for that and set it into the reserves, which is the safest thing to do. And so, and I think we need a better policy on that one. The other one I had was, so I don't recommend that we adjust that number. I recommend that we asterisk that number and the county court can deal with it. As you're saying, it's theirs in the end anyway.
Yes, exactly. This is just a recommendation.
There was also a $3.5 million expenditure in here for project management. I think it was.
Check management, okay.
I can't remember even which one of these funding streams it comes out of, but with no explanation. I would ask that you asterisk that. I use that.
51. Every year. Like you're back on Western grants that you usually.
What page?
51.
51.
Like the Alkali Ridge and the grade school and. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's the daycare project, the barn, there's the event center, there's,
Yeah, and so that is a lump sum that will be apportioned out to as necessary to all the various projects, might be roads, might be.
yeah, I don't think it could.
No, have their own
Okay, so this would just be. the
Just like I
center.
said, the event center, the bus
Yeah.
barn,
And so we
the
approved.
daycare, the,
There you go.
So I think if we had maybe, and I know Nathan did this a few years back where we tried to get a narrative from each department or for each fund to explain what their requests were for. So there would be like a cover page on each fund that explained these dollar amounts better. It didn't come together as planned that year, but yeah, things happened.
I mean, it's the general fund, here's general, what we're gonna do with the money, then the dollar show.
Yeah,
Next
Yeah.
department, next department.
right.
And-
Just an explanation of big changes. to-
Grants, I mean, we go in a big circle, right? 'Cause everybody wants something little different. I mean, years back, we brought all the grants into the budget committee and discussed them during the meeting.
Right.
And that's something the committee can interested in. It worked fine, it made the meeting longer,
Mhm.
but, you know, lended comfort to the people making decisions.
well, and one of
Yeah.
the things I talked to Brooklyn about was like, because Sherry ran into this when she was like, what did we give for the last 3
Yeah.
years?
We need.
If we can compile, you know, how much we gave for grants to entities and how.
And we
much
do
they
have that spreadsheet
expended.
that, but I was keeping updated and then Delaney was keeping it updated and I would hope,
Yeah.
that the next person that's in charge of the grant
But
program
it would
would
be,
continue
and
that.
it was showing that, but it doesn't show like, you have to look through all the different ones to find like, how much did we give the Common School District?
Oh, there is a spreadsheet that was supposed to show all that.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, it's maybe older, but the newer ones
Okay,
are just
and,
by,
this is what I put together with the spreadsheet we had, and it's just numbers.
Mhm.
And to me, I'd like to also be able to see what they spent that money.
What
on.
it was for.
So,
because
yeah,
some of them are
A little bit.
reimbursable, so they have to.
right.
I just got the first reimbursement request from the Port of Arlington, and I already told Kayla, I said, well, we're gonna have a tracking spreadsheet for that, whether I fill it out or you fill it out.
Mhm.
We won't discuss
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'll be implementing that, so I didn't.
Yeah, should be documents already created for all.
On this 3.5 million, what I noticed was that we also put 3.5 million into it last year. Is this the same 3.5 million or are we adding another 3.5 million or?
Let's,
Waste management, just in the upper portion of that page, that's what he's coming in from it. It matches perfectly 3.5 to 3.5. And I'm guessing because of these big projects like
The post fees.
the alkali project and the grade school and everything, you're just continuing that.
I don't think we spent.
yeah,
3.5
we spent $14,287
Okay.
in this current fiscal year. So it's somewhat of a placeholder for projects as they come up,
So this-
to have
Court,
funding
this
available.
is an area where the county court can look at that space holder and develop realistic ideas. I'm sorry for voting you down.
I think last year, these projects were already in the bin.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then through it.
But you don't know when the expense
Yeah.
is going to happen, so you have to have the money
And so
available.
what that number is we're trying to do as good a number as possible
Yes.
to reflect reality. Okay.
Yeah, the history's there, we just have to go look.
Brad, did you have anything else you wanted to bring up? I don't want to hold you up from working cows or whatever.
Yeah, I do need to get going here. No, I appreciate your comments, Wally. I mean, it's good to have accountability on that. When you see a $6 million number there, it's good to know what that's supposed to be used for. I believe that last year it was explained as, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to spend $6 million, but it's nice to have the ability if something comes along. And I guess philosophically, maybe in the future, we need to decide if it's good to have that much sitting there or if we tighten that up a little bit
Yeah.
and not have as
It's a
much
good
sitting
number.
there. So
Yeah.
that would be my comment. I mean, I know we are all busy people. Wouldn't want to have to put the budget committee back together, but if some major project came before the county, we could always reconvene. I mean, it's not a once a year type of thing. If something major came before us. But anyway, that's my comment.
For a supplemental budget, the budget committee is not involved in that. That's just the court making decisions on supplemental
Right.
budgets. Yeah.
We have agreed to allow them.
Yeah.
Within defined parameters
Yeah.
to take a certain amount of money and spend it as they wish.
Yeah.
I also think, okay, I'd like to wrap this up, and I'm gonna make one comment, considering what we've gone through here, over the past several months. And that's communication. We, not necessarily the budget committee, but, we have to do a better job of communicating to the, I'm not gonna say it, voters, I'm gonna say it, citizens of this county. This budget, there are gonna be some people, when they look at this budget, we have to have explanations. There's a reason that we have, and that's the reason I'm trying to tighten up as an example, the homestead endowment. You have to defend that. You have to defend where you're spending economic enhancement funds. You have to defend where is SIP going, which we've already discussed previously. It used to be we had one mad person in Condon and one mad person in Arlington, and they got together twice a year for lunch, and they yelled at each other. Now with social media, overnight, you've got flames. And the court has got to address go through this budget and address where the flames potentially are and start developing some explanations for why we are carrying between, as an example, the question I had to Nathan was, how much money are we going to have in our accounts, our checking accounts, investment accounts, at the start of this upcoming fiscal year? He said a conservative number is $62.5 million is conservative. There has to be an explanation, folks. Maybe ahead of the question, there has to be an explanation for why we have it. And there are good reasons. These are soft dollars in some cases. SIP is soft. It's not real soft. But economic enhancement with waste management is a 5-year contract. And I think it's a 5-year deal between them and Metro as well, but.
No, it's 10.
10-year contract. That's not a soft contract, but it's not rock solid concrete. You have to have reserves. So that wraps up. Any further questions before any other business we need to conduct?
No.
Okay.
This body.
That's it.
I would ask that we motion for adjournment.
I so moved.
Now that adjournment is out of the way, Gary has showed up. I had a few questions. I've already talked to him about them. And
Was that a motion to adjourn or you just?
oh, I'm
Did
sorry,
we
I didn't
adjourn?
vote. That's great sometimes.
Sorry,
Thank you.
I'm just focused.
All those in favor of
Actually,
adjournment?
I think all you have to do is adjourn.
Just adjourn.
Oh, don't have to have a motion? Okay,
No.
we are adjourned.